So let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about that. Okay. And feel free to chime in as you're going along. So, like, that's really real, living at home and just watching things get destroyed every day. And then it's like, why bother cleaning up? Because the next day is just going to be he's playing and wanting you to play. You're constantly undoing. Right. Right. Oh, that's so hard. Um, what do I have for you? I mean, a lot of it is going to be around just your self-talk of like, we're going to get back to normal. We're going to get back to things being neat. And it doesn't mean you let everything go. Like, I don't like it when people say to people who I'm a person who likes tidy, right? And I don't like being told like, well, you just have to relax and just let it go. Cause it means like everything is going and it actually I grew up in a very messy house, and it makes me physically anxious to have a messy house. And for my husband, who doesn't really feel that way, it's hard for him to understand and to take it on. And so I feel like I'm fighting the tide, and it's always like me cleaning up. And if nobody else is cleaning up, then I get resentful. Does that sound about right? And I think what's really important, what I found has worked for me anyway, is just to state it honestly. Like, I get upset when things are messy. I don't feel calm when things are messy. And is there like a balance? Like, can you shift a little bit? And how much can you without holding on to like it has to be perfect, right? I think that there's got to be some give and take there, and probably it'll be, a team effort for the adults in the house to say like, at the end of the day, we're going to clean up, and maybe you have Eli, sit and do something or make a small mess, whatever that mess is, while you guys are cleaning up. Yes, and resentful, totally. Um, I really get this. So what I found is that for me to hold my line and to hold my standard, especially when my kids were young, um, it made me into somebody I didn't want to be, right? And I would find myself cleaning up, but like cleaning up with like an edge. And somebody, a therapist I was seeing at the time, said, it's okay to do the cleaning up, but like try to do it without the edge. And the edge for me, all the resentment was really coming from a lot of my self-talk around it. Like, why am I the only one cleaning up? Why am I the only one who cares? And like, if I could go back and coach my resentful self, it would be to change that messaging, to be something more helpful. Like, I care. I do care about this, and it's okay that I care about this, and it's okay for me to ask for help with this, right? It's okay for me to say, I care the most. Let's just acknowledge I care the most about this thing, and that I get resentful when I have to do it by myself, or I feel like I'm doing it by myself, and nobody wants me to be resentful. I don't want to be resentful. You guys don't want me to be resentful. So let's make a plan for how we're going to be a team around this. And I would say that especially if you don't have help from your partner, you have to tell your partner when you're feeling resentful. Otherwise, what happens is you get this thing called stonewalling, which is when you just are like kind of shutting the person out, and they know why, or they don't know why, but they just know they're being shut out. Maybe that's happening with you guys. Maybe it's not. It's just very common in couples for this to happen. And so speaking resentment doesn't have to be a laundry list, a laundry list of, because we're talking about cleaning up and laundry, right? A laundry list of you don't. It's not grievance sharing. It's not, it's not that. It's explaining to the other person very specifically, when this is happening, and when it happens, I get resentful. And when I get resentful, that's when I nag. It's when I stonewall. It's when I get upset. It's when, shit starts to go sideways for us, right? And for me. And so I'm going to work on you know, expectations and managing myself, but at least that's a different outlet or inlet for your conversation, right? I'm feeling resentful. We need to make a plan to make this work, and to ask for whatever support is realistic from your kids. Your son is 5, so there's a little bit of cooperation he can do, but it's not going to be on him. It's going to be on the adults to lead and to set a structure for that, right? Like maybe there's a rule in place, if there wasn't already, that before we do the next thing, we're going to clean up, period. That's the rule. That will save a lot of like the huge cleaning up at the end of the day. And I've had to go back to that rule like hardcore with my kids being home all the time now too, where I'm like, it's just mess after mess after mess. And then I feel like I'm chasing them around cleaning up. And that's when I'm like, oh, hell no, this feels terrible, right? So if it gets to a point where I'm cleaning up and then they're asking me to do something else, I have to hold my own line and say, you know what? I'm not going to go and play ping pong, for example. I'm not going to go and do the other thing because this needs to be cleaned up first. So they're not getting me leaving the thing and going to them. Even if I'm the one cleaning up, at least I feel like I'm holding the line and I'm being like, I'm going to hold this rule for myself. Because I think, I don't know if this is resonating with you, Jessica, or anybody else watching this, but when I get the most resentful is when I don't hold my own line for myself. And then I become part of the problem, especially with messiness. And I'm like, well, I'm supposed to lighten up and I'm supposed to like, you know, be as messy as everybody else. And I guess I'll just be part of the problem and we'll see what happens. But it doesn't bother them the way it bothers me. And it doesn't have to. It doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right because I'm cleaner and tidier and I clean up more, right? It just means that when I buy into being part of that problem, I get mad at myself, and it because I know it's upsetting to me. It's like if you're not a smoker and you're sitting around with a bunch of smokers and you're like, well, I guess I might as well smoke because, but it doesn't feel good. It makes you cough. It makes you sick. It's maybe not the same thing, but it's a pretty good image, right? Pretty good idea. So what I found really works for me and worked for me when my kids were little is be like, no, I'm not leaving here, and not to make them do it, because that gets into some power battles too, right? And then there are decisions, many decisions to be made in there. If they continually don't clean up the Legos, the blocks, the whatever they were playing with, those things get put in a box and they get put away, right? Because if I'm the one who's constantly cleaning it up, we got to revisit this because now I'm getting too resentful. But what I've learned is that resentment is actually really, really helpful. And to ignore it, to deny it, to push it aside just backfires, right? It backfires because it's denial of something that's actually upsetting you. Rather, what creates healthy connection and healthy communication is to say, I'm feeling really resentful. This is a red flag that a boundary is being crossed. A boundary was probably crossed a while ago. Now I'm resentful. It's a red flag. Something's got to change. And then you can lean in with smart action and say, okay, well, this piece of it doesn't feel good. I need to change that piece. Or I'm okay cleaning up if somebody moves on to the next thing when they're young, or maybe even when they're older, because I'm just being nice right now. And you have some more flexibility. But that internal struggle of like dealing with the resentment and not naming it, that's when it starts to drive you and it starts to create all of the negativity and the spin inside your head. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I say name it. Always name it to tame it. It's always going to feel better. And you're like, oh, that's resentment. I know what to do with that. Right? Instead of the like, I'm always asking you to clean up and nobody's helping and I'm the only one who cares and this house would go to shit if I didn't care about it, right? Like all of that stuff. And it just runs wild instead of taming it, the wild horses of our resentment. So hold the line for yourself. And if you feel resentment from other people not helping, then take action there too, right? But getting into a power struggle over, you have to help me clean up before you go and take out the other thing, That's not going to feel so good, and eventually it will backfire. So that's where you can get into like, let's sing it for a little kid. Let's make it a game over here. Hey, let's see how fast we can clean this one up. And then I'm so excited to go and play with you over there and do that other thing, right? I can't tell you the number of times, you guys, where I have been washing the dishes or cleaning up the kitchen. And my kids are ready. They want me to go and move on to something else. And I've had to say, this kitchen needs to be cleaned up. And I'm not going to step away until it's done. If you would like for me to be available to you faster, you can help. I'd really love for you to help. That would feel really good, right? But I'm not going to leave here until it's done. Let's make it go faster and chip in. This is when they're a little older, right? Sometimes they'll chip in and be like, yeah, well, we need 4 people to play Monopoly, right? Or we need a third person to do whatever it is. So yeah, let's just, and sometimes they'll take off, right? And if they take off and then I notice my own resentment and then I'm finished, let's just say cleaning up the kitchen, and then I sit down and they come to me and they say, well, now the kitchen's all clean. Don't you want to play? You said you would play afterward. Well, actually, I tell them, my doing that alone actually made me feel pretty resentful. And now I don't really feel like playing. And I don't know if that is going to shift for me this evening. If it does, I'll let you know. And if it doesn't, then, next time I think it would probably be really helpful if you helped and I would feel less resentful. But this is what resentment looks like. And this is what it feels like. It makes me not want to play. Do you see how I'm owning my own feeling and taking responsibility for like what I'm doing instead of, I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying like, you guys didn't do that and therefore I'm not going to play with you. It's a different conversation. It's a different level. So I will tell them honestly, and this takes a lot of self-awareness on your part, right? But you can do it. What I need to do right now, I'm going to have some water. I'm going to sit for a little bit. I'm going to listen to some music. I'm going to write in my journal. I'm going to, whatever the thing is that you do to relax and replenish yourself. Because trying to move on when you're empty, that's where resentment really gets stuck. Where we get stuck in our resentment is, okay, well, I'm feeling depleted and I'm feeling resentful from cleaning up the kitchen. And now I'm going to go play ping pong and like pretend to have a good time. It doesn't work. And they feel it. So sit and take care of yourself. I'm going to read for a few minutes. I need to refuel. I need to recharge, whatever words you want to use. And then, I'll let you know if I want to play again. I'll let you know. That's fair. And it may not feel like they may not feel like they like it so much. They don't have to like it, but that's real life. That's a real life consequence to not helping clean up in the kitchen, is that it takes longer. One person's doing it and then that person doesn't want to play. And I never say you made me not want to play. I would say something like that experience took the play out of me. It really did. It didn't feel good. Right? And here I am, I'm sitting, I'm taking care of myself, but no, yeah, I don't feel like playing now. Does that help? Is that? Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to so I hope that helps. And, again, just remember that resentment is helpful. It's a helpful indicator. It means a boundary has been crossed. It means that something needs change. And don't ignore your resentment. And don't try to talk yourself out of resentment. Figure out what's going on. It's a strong one. It's a strong, helpful indicator that something needs your attention. It's important. I should come up with a little mantra for that. Like if you resent it, what rhymes with resent? Resent, intent, circumvent. If you resent it, don't circumvent it. That's terrible. It's so bad. But it rhymes. I'm just working on the fly here, people.